Good afternoon, everyone. I call this February 8th, 2024 Jacksonville Water and Sewer Advisory Committee to order. I believe we do have a quorum.
Yes, sir.
Has everyone here had a chance to review the agenda items for today's meeting?
Yes.
Are there any discussions? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion to accept the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Agenda adopted. The minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Are there any omissions or corrections to those minutes of January? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion to accept the minutes as written.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Minutes approved. Again, I'd like to welcome everyone for this month's meeting. Again, I'm sure we have a lot of things to cover here, and I'll just start off by handing it to Mr. Hanson.
Good evening. We appreciate you coming tonight. We have a little bit of a lengthy discussion because we're going to go through the draft water and sewer projects for the capital improvement plan. I'll just kind of quickly run through a few things. I know you've seen some of this before, but the capital improvement plan is a 10-year planning horizon. The purpose is to identify projects, show cost, try to identify probable funding sources, and then evaluate and prioritize those projects. And ultimately, as you're aware, we use them in programming our rate and our system development fees. So a capital improvement project is typically a project that takes 12 months to complete or more. The cost generally exceeds $50,000. I think we have one exception in your book. And I'll talk about that one briefly. And then a useful life of more than 5 years. Again, we use this for financial planning. So it is focused on water and sewer projects that impact the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund. And this 10-year window is from FY25 through FY34.
Yes.
Did I do that right? So we got a slight typo up there. It should be. And so the only funded projects are the FY25 projects. So those are what will be used to build our FY25 budget. And then the forecasted or planning projects that we use for the remaining 9 years are from 26 to 34. And one of the things I'd just like to remind the board, the reason we use a 10-year capital improvement plan, because as you can imagine, we're using master plans, we're using forecasted development from talking with landowners and developers. I mean, I hate to say it, it's a crystal ball. And we're trying to make sure that we plan appropriately so that we have the right capacity for future growth, as well as replacing and updating our existing infrastructure. And we use a 10-year model because that is what's required for our system development fees per general statute. So with that, we'll kind of jump in. You've seen this format before. We use kind of a little bit of a Gantt chart format. I will talk specifically about the FY25 projects and kind of gloss over the remaining projects because, again, the FY25 projects are those projects that will be funded. So you can see that as we're going through the projects, we have kind of planning, design, and construction. That's the phases the project goes through. And what we've done is show you what year each cycle is funded. And if for some of our projects, we don't really have planning money involved because it may be part of a replacement project where we're just doing in kind, or it may be part of an overall plan that has already covered that. So there may not be planning in that. If there's not, you'll just see a little dash that shows no expenditures. And then the color coordination will be blue is water, green is sewer. So, and we kind of follow the markings that people see when utility locates are done. Blue, if you see a blue paint on the ground, that's water. Green paint is sewer. So that's kind of why we follow that color. And then our combined is purple. So as we're going through this, we have a couple of different types. We have the NCDOT impacted projects. So again, that is water and sewer impacts from NCDOT projects. And we have water projects, sewer projects, and then combined, and you can see the numbers there. So with that, we'll just kind of jump in. So for this, we threw all the projects on one slide. Again, these are things that we really don't have a choice on. When we are in NCDOT's right-of-way and they say they're going to do work and we have a conflict, we are responsible for the cost of that conflict. If we are outside of DOT's right-of-way and they expand their right-of-way into our easement, then they're responsible for that cost. But there is also a match, and I think it's 50%. So if they impact us, I think they pick up about 50% of that project.
So when you say impact, so if there's a conflict,
yes,
and it has to be relocated or what have you, you're saying that they'll pay 50%?
50% of that cost. Okay. So, and typically our conflicts come, especially if it's, expanding the right of way or moving the curb line or something. It's typically when they have storm drainage. That's where the conflicts typically happen. So we have, you can see the projects here. There's only 2 identified in FY25. We have a couple that fell off because the conflicts are primarily taken care of, even though we haven't received a bill. For example, Gum Branch Road, all the DOT work you see on Gum Branch Road. We have a water line that goes all the way out to Rock Creek. We had some impacts there, and that money's already set aside, and that work's been done. We're just waiting to receive bills. Okay. And then the same for, I don't know if anybody's been out in the Piney Green area, but Commerce Road extension is complete and opened up, and it makes a world of difference. We had a meeting with DOT today, and I asked them if we could go ahead and extend that all the way to Western because it looks very nice. But and we had some water and sewer conflicts there.
So, you say yes or no?
Yeah, if we pay for it, I think.
So you had some water and sewer conflicts for the Commerce extension?
We did. We have a sewer force main that ran through the area where they extended. And then and it goes out to North Marine Town Center. So it serves that Circle, is that Circle K? Yeah. Circle K and CarMax and Stevenson Toyota.
So the city had to pay? The
city paid for some of that. We also have water that extends up that right-of-way past New River Baptist Association, and it was also in conflict. Again, it was with the stormwater.
So did DOT always have that easement through there? I mean, was that always a planned extension or?
No, it was a planned extension, but the portion that we paid for was not part of the right-of-way it was actually within existing right-of-way already.
Gotcha. Okay.
So those are the DOT projects. We'll move to sewer. And you can see, I forgot to mention this, but the page number is kind of in the bottom right-hand corner. So this will be the Western Regional Sewer System, and I know you've seen this project many times before, but this project is currently underway. There's some actual pictures for the first phase of this project. So the first phase will extend from LTS, which you can kind of see our lagoon in the right-hand side of that picture. So to extend from LTS to the intersection of 258 and Pony Farm Road. And then the second contract will extend from that intersection down Northwest Corridor Boulevard, which is where the county building is, go under the river to the pump station site, the future pump station site. So we're excited that this project's underway. Work is proceeding pretty well. The right-of-way's all been cleared. As you can see, we actually have pipe going in the ground.
Is this, who's doing this, Carolina?
This one's Carolina. I always,
Eric Ward? I think.
yes, Eric Ward. Yes, sir. Carolina Utilities.
Yep, yep. That's right.
So, the next contract should actually be out for bid this month. So if you remember, we talked about staggering those contracts a little bit so that work could get underway on the first one, we could get progressing, and then bid the second one. So we're interested to see where that comes out.
The size of that pipe again, is that what,
36?
I thought
Yes,
36,
sir.
yeah.
And we had to, there's been several conversations about this through the years. And if you'll remember, I think this started off at a $25 million project way back when. $20 million project. So, and as you can see, the total cost estimate right now is about $43 million.
And is this both phases or
This is both phases and the pump station.
where's the location? So you said you're boring under the river. Where is the proposed location?
The proposed location is actually in the back of Williamsburg Plantation.
Okay.
So, and we have a gravity sewer main that runs from the intersection of Western Boulevard and Williamsburg Parkway. So where Kitchen Lighting and Design is, that intersection, all the way up Williamsburg Plantation, and it actually follows the creek that's between that subdivision and Woodlands, and runs all the way out almost to the river, and then runs behind Northwoods and heads to Brookview. It will actually be built right off of that existing gravity sewer, and we will intercept that sewer and turn it into this station.
Okay.
So, and that's all part of this portion of the project. And then we'll get there, but in a few minutes, you'll see we have future expansions of this project.
So it's fully fully funded, looks like that, all the funding's in place and.
The funding's in place. We had
Yeah.
$32 million, I believe, in grant funding that helped significantly. And then the remaining, I think we're considering going out for revenue bonds. So, and in order to do that, you have to have 75% of the project bid. So we can't go out first.
Yeah.
And get the revenue bonds, we have to have it bid. And then we have Holiday City Mobile Home Park. This has been on our books for quite a while. If you remember, we talked about doing an I&I study. We did that, they made repairs. Then we did another one because we still had concerns. And we assisted the mobile home park in doing that. And we identified some additional cleanouts and sewer taps that needed to be addressed. So those repairs were made. And then we did an evaluation, and what we found was the existing pump station, even after all of that's been done, is at capacity. And there's still one or two decent sized tracts of land in that basin to be developed. And one of those there is actually up for sale, and they're looking at putting multifamily there. So this project is probably going to require a little bit of an upgrade. Tidewater has this design and they're working through it now. So hopefully we'll see this. We're hoping the design will be complete by the end of this fiscal year so we can get it out for bid and construct it next year. This is a new project in your CIP. It's the Commons Pump Station upgrade. We are having significant development pressure in the Ramsey Road, Drummer Kellum area. The city has an existing pump station that was constructed with Country View and Harvest Meadows. And we already have 152 or so lot subdivision that's under construction now. Matter of fact, there are houses people are living in. And they're talking about expanding that into some existing vacant property. This actually comes through the Commons lift station. which was originally sized for the commons and a little bit of area outside, but not as much as we're talking about. So with the continued development pressure, this station is going to require an upgrade. The number that we're using is following similar size stations that we've seen in the past. Again, we haven't done any planning, we haven't done any design. We recognize, we track the capacity of every station, and we recognize that we're at the point where we're going to need additional capacity in this station.
Can this not, didn't we run, pipes up 17 and a crossover to that section?
Not yet, but we'll get there.
Oh, we haven't got there yet.
We haven't got there
I thought we'd
yet.
already done it.
So-
All right, never mind.
We'll talk about that one in just a minute.
All right.
And then this, of course, this is on page 12, but as we look at this area, we need to look at whether there are other options. So this project is in there. It is necessary, provided that this is the direction that sewer comes. Brinson Creek Pump Station, this is an update to the pump station. Brinson Creek has a challenge with hydrogen sulfide gas. It actually causes problems with our discharge pipes, the concrete in the wet well, the pump bases. And I don't remember when this station was renovated, but I think we're going on about 15 years now.
Wow.
I was involved, but it wasn't recent. So I think it's been about 15 years, and it just needs updates. And this is kind of, for lack of a better description, this is internal plumbing updates.
So where is this?
It's located kind of behind the fairgrounds.
Okay.
It pumps directly into our force main.
Okay.
So it actually sits kind of the upper end off of Broadhorse Road behind the VFW and the fairgrounds. And then our I&I project, this is a reoccurring project that we do every 3 years. This is just the next iteration of that project. So it's an ongoing program. We've talked about this many times. What I will say is we track our sewer flow daily, but we evaluate it every month. And if you think about the growth that the city has seen over the last 10 years, with our I&I efforts and other things that we're doing, our capacity at our plant, we're climbing slightly, but we're remaining fairly static. So, if you look at the development we've had in the last 10 years, I think the most recent numbers that we've looked at, I think we're only up maybe 100,000 gallons or so.
So basically
We're
the I&I repairs you're doing are.
It's allowing for future
Wow.
growth. So while it's and while 700,000 every 3 years is not cheap, I'll remind the board that when we did the 3 million gallon a day expansion at LTS, it was $48 million. So if we keep this, we can extend that out, the next expansion out further. And then these are the planning projects. So I won't go through these individually, but just to point out a few, the Western Trunk Sewer Phase 2 I talked about. So this would be the upper end of the Western Regional sewer system we talked about. So this would be from essentially Williamsburg Plantation to Carolina Forest. This would actually redirect the Carolina Forest force main into this new system, which will take a lot of flow off of an existing at capacity gravity sewer main that runs down Mill Creek.
Okay.
So it will remove all of that flow from the existing system and put it into this new system. And then main pump station update, it's similar to Brinson Creek, but it's significantly more because we actually have 4 pumps and motors. They're turbine pumps, so they're a motor with a shaft to a pump. But the mounts need to be replaced, the bases need to be replaced. The motor housing is in pretty good shape because it's on the top level and it's fairly dry. It's the pumps and the discharge pipes and those kind of things that we need to address. And some of that was done in 2011 when we did or 12 when we did the expansion, but the others have not been. So we need to come back and pick those up. And then the rest of those projects have been in the CIP for quite a while now. And the last two, you'll see those are getting pretty far out. They're really near the end of the window. And they are important projects, but depending on how the city grows, will depend on when those are needed. So in order for that Piney Green area to continue to develop out, those projects would be needed. And then the great thing about the Bryn Mawr force main relocation, we did a study about 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago now, that looked at additional ways to gain capacity in our existing system. And one of the options we came up with was entering into a partnership with the base where we send sewer flow to the base. And right now we have an agreement through OMWASA to send sewer to the base. But this would require an additional agreement because we would tie directly into the force main. But it would turn about 1.2 million gallons a day out of our system. So that frees up 1.2 million gallons a day through our system and 1.2 million gallons a day of capacity at our plant. And when we did that study, the estimate was about $11 or $12 million. So the plug number you see there was an original number that came from our planning study. But when we did the full study, it actually came out higher. So, but that study's 10 years old now.
Yeah.
So when we get closer to that, that will need to be updated. And then we have additional projects for future, and you can see that Poplar Branch, again, that's at the time that Piney Green area starts to develop. And then, of course, the I&I program that we do every 3 years. Any questions on sewer projects? For combined water and sewer projects, so again, these are both water and sewer, and they include expansions or extensions, and they include rehabilitation. So for the first project, we have the Drummer Kellum Road Sewer, which is the one that you were asking about. This would actually extend water and sewer across 17 at Tundra Lane, I think is the name of it. It's the road right beside Stevenson Toyota.
Okay.
At North Marine Town Center. So we have a manhole there, and we extend that manhole under 17 and up to not quite to Drummer Kellum Road, but close to Drummer Kellum Road, the intersection. And this became part of the CIP, and I don't remember the date, but probably back in 2016 or 17. A developer owned a fairly large commercial tract, and they had divided it or wanted to subdivide it into 5 lots, I believe. And they came to the city and entered into an agreement that said if they annexed it, that we would extend water and sewer across. But then we would recover our cost through those sewer service area charges that we've talked about before, where they pay the system development fee and then they pay a little bit on top of that to cover those costs. So that's how we would recover those costs for this project.
But that's the extent of this project, is just getting it to the other side?
Yeah, and up a little bit. But yeah, it's a fairly small project.
And
It's
so-
already designed, it's already permitted, but it's 2 bores under all of 17. That's the bulk of this cost.
So who's gonna tie into it? Where's
So there's actually a proposal in front of city council that they approved at their, January meeting, the second meeting in January, I don't remember if that was the 16th. They rezoned that area. So that's the area that was part of the original annexation.
Gotcha.
And it's my understanding that there's potential development that they've secured behind that piece of property also.
Yep. Gotcha.
So all of that would come there. But at some point, there's a break between that area and the Drummer Kellum Ramsey Road area. So what we've got to figure out is what is the best way to serve that corner? Is it to figure out how to reroute a force main and get it to this area, and then could the downstream pump stations, because this actually goes through the middle of town to the Bears pump station, which is on Belfork Road, which was recently, when I say recently, within the last 8 to 10 years, redone, but I don't know how much capacity is left in that one yet. So part of it would be depending on what's planned for the project we're talking about, and then what's remaining in our downstream
It
lift
seems like
station.
that project you're talking about it's feasible to get it back there to the sewer that's feeding Harvest Meadows back
Yes,
through the commons.
it's feasible if you reroute the force main, because that force main ties into the commons at Alta Vista. And this property stops just short of that.
Okay.
So, so it does give us options.
Yeah.
And that will be looked at. You know, we'll do a cost analysis, but I have a feeling that Bears, we built a little bit of capacity in Bears, but we had put it in an area that was pretty much developed out, and then we tied North Marine Town Center into it. So it's how much capacity is remaining at that station. So if we have to, upgrade a pump station, which one does it make more sense to upgrade?
Where does the water come from for this?
For this will come, we actually have water at North Marine Town Center,
I
so,
mean, which tower?
the Commons.
Commons?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We have a 12-inch main that runs down 17 and supplies this. We talked about this project several times. It's titled FY23 Infrastructure, but this is DeWitt and East Bay Shore. And DeWitt Street is the worst street in the city. It has failing sewer, and I think we talked about we had $1 million in this. We literally got the cost estimate last night from the engineer. I think it came at like 6 or 7 o'clock last night, and this matches the cost estimate. So I'll be honest, I thought it was going to be more, so I'm still a little nervous.
Right.
But they've actually done preliminary engineering work, so they have the scope of the project. So hopefully this will come out fairly close to where we have it
Where is
estimated.
DeWitt? Is that Northwoods or?
So it's actually DeWitt Street runs from
No, that's back.
Onslow Drive to Gum Branch Road, across to Old Elizabeth Lake.
Where?
Smithfields.
Yes, it ties in at
Yes,
Smithfield.
yes,
Back to
At
Dr.
the
Morgan's old
stoplight.
office.
Yeah, okay, I got you.
So, and when I say it's the worst road in the city, it literally is rated the worst road in the city.
is.
Maybe the surface.
Part of that segment is rated at like a 15 or 13 or something. So, and it's the part where the sewer's the worst. So, we're excited to see this project progressing. And we added, the big change to this is we added funding in FY25 to match the engineer's cost estimate. And then coming into the window, we have a planning study for the metering fixed network. Mr. Thomas, you may remember when we went to AMR, the automatic meter readers. I know it's been at least 15 years, maybe 18 years now, but we're having trouble with some of that system. There's obviously newer technology with greater capabilities, so we will be evaluating replacement of that system. It's about time. It's getting hard to get some of those parts. And some of the things that we will evaluate is, right now, the way our AMR works is we send a city vehicle around and they drive routes, and there's an antenna on the meter that talks to the car as it goes by. And that's how we do our meter read. So we do it once a month. There's other technology now where you can have a fixed network and it talks pretty much continuously, and which is very similar to how power meters work. So anybody that uses the app from their local power provider, you can go on and see usage and those kind of things. That is technology that is available to water systems, to water meters. Of course, I don't know what cost is there, but that's one of the things that we will evaluate. The great thing about that is it may be a large upfront cost that we can use to save manpower over time as we grow. And then it also helps us identify leaks faster. It will help homeowners identify leaks faster. So there are some great, there's some great opportunities and efficiencies there, but it's also at what cost will that come out?
So you wouldn't
Saves
want-
manpower too.
Yes,
Yeah, so you wouldn't have somebody driving the streets all day, every day?
correct. So it does help there. So, and it's like anything else, right? Though, as the city grows, you may be able to take those positions and reallocate those to other places and not have to expand the workforce.
So it's in 25, so you've already,
That's the planning. So the money's not available yet. What page are we on? 31. Sorry, I'm doing all this from memory, so I need to look at it. Yeah, so we don't have any money currently, so the planning study would look at it would basically be an alternatives and cost benefit analysis is what we would do in 25. And then the design would follow that initial planning study. And then these are the future projects that we've identified. We have FY26 infrastructure rehabilitation. You'll see that we have not identified the water and sewer lines for that project yet. We will be working with utilities maintenance and using our work order systems to identify those. And then the same for 30 and 33. But we have identified, and I just realized Thompson's misspelled, I apologize, but Saunders School and Thompson that have been identified and programmed in 28 and 29. Any questions on those? All right, to our water projects. So the first project up, I know we've seen this a few times. What I have to say right now is we're kind of on hold. I talked about this project a little bit the last time. We were going to rehab well 1 and drill a new Black Creek well to replace wells 2 through 4. This is something that we've talked about at length with the state. The good thing is you end up spreading out your wells and not putting so much demand in one area. In addition to when these wells were drilled originally, we were 100% Black Creek. We're not as reliant on the Black Creek because of the new water plant, the Castlane wells. So the challenge here is when we did the full water testing for well 1, we found high natural levels of fluoride. So, and if we move forward with that project, it will force us to do an annual statement saying that fluoride browns teeth and at certain levels it can cause cancer and those kind of things. So we would prefer not to go there. Again, it's naturally occurring. We don't feed fluoride because we have natural fluoride in our water. but we don't have to currently release that statement, so we prefer not to spend a bunch of money
Right.
and get there. So right now, we're looking at other options. I've identified a couple of locations we can go look at. And one of those is actually not near well 1 or well 2. It's actually off of Gum Branch Road. But we're trying to identify alternatives to this. And in addition, one of the things that we're also working with the state on is trying to recover some of our capacity in the Black Creek, which would be the point for the monitoring well. Right now, we're permitted at 1 million gallons a day. And we're holding there. What we're trying to do is gain back 1 million so that we can go to 2 million gallons a day. And for us, it's a major benefit because it allows us to balance what we use from the Black Creek with what we use from the Castle Hayne. And for the benefit of our ratepayers, Black Creek water is cheaper for us to produce. So if we can use that to help offset, again, growth in demand at a cheaper rate, it helps our ratepayers too. And it helps us better manage both aquifers. We're not putting too much pressure on the Black Creek and we're not putting too much pressure on the Castle Hayne. The Branchwood Water Service is a project that's currently underway. This is a project that came out of our maintenance division. We have replaced numerous water services in this area. Most of the problems we have are not water main problems. They're actually water sewer service problems. It's thin wall PVC. And I hate to say it, you look at it funny and it seems to leak. So this project will replace as many as we possibly can with that 450, and then we would look at continuing that with a future project. Or right now, what we do as we respond to water leaks in the Branchwood area, we go ahead and replace from the main to the meter. So we're going ahead and replacing it because we know if we don't do it now while we've got it dug up, then we will have to do it with this project. So it just didn't make sense to continually go through there, dig up a service, put a 3-part union on it, because, and I hate to say this, but we went to one address for a water leak and we dug it up and there were already 2 3-part unions on that same service. So that was the 3rd time of repairing that one service. So it just makes sense to go ahead and if we know we need to do the work anyway, we do it while we're there. And then we track those so we can back them out of the project.
Saves money on the long run.
The challenge with this project is as we're doing that work, we went ahead and we're looking at identifying streets for street paving. So we wanted to be prepared once we get this work done to be able to pave those streets. There are some sewer repairs that need to be made in that area. We don't have that in our CIP anywhere. So we're going to try to pick those. They do have I&I. So we're going to try to pick those up with our I&I project if that will work. And if we can do that, then we'll coordinate this project with that work. So hopefully we only impact the residents for utility work once and then road work once. Instead of water once, sewer once, and road work once. So, this will be a coordination challenge, but that's what our goal is. And then we have Bryn Mawr water tank upgrades. This project was identified following Hurricane Florence. I know we've talked about this, but the only thing we use that tank for right now is cell phone towers. So we do get revenue from it. But the commons tank is so high at a higher elevation. So the tank is located at a higher elevation in town. And then the tank itself is actually taller than this tank. So when we put this online, it actually pushes water right out the top. So once you fill it, there's no way to get water out of it other than isolate it and dump it. So we really don't want to lose this asset. It's a 500,000 gallon tank. You know, and it does provide benefit when we go into, you know, preparing for a hurricane or a natural disaster so that we'd have use. In addition, right now, we have current concerns with taking the Commons tank offline because we don't have another tank on that side, period. So by adding this tank, this booster station to this tank, it will actually give us a redundancy so that we can take the Commons tank offline. And right now, the Commons tank is backlogged on work. There's some work that we need to do with the coding, and we've actually pushed that off to, 2 years now.
Wow.
How much higher does the tank need to go?
We evaluated raising it, and it was cost prohibitive. It's just cheaper to put a pump.
Okay, so you're not gonna raise the
We're
tank?
not. And originally, the engineer recommended a 1.5 million gallon a day pump. So the idea was that we could turn this tank over 3 times in a day if we needed to. The idea was, you know, it gives us greater capacity and flexibility. The problem is, once you get over 1 million gallons, the price almost doubles. So we did I think it's just the size of everything. You know, the size of the pump, the power required. If you have generator access or a portable generator, it's got to be larger. It completely changed the cost of this project. So you'll see that we added money to the project, but we did an engineering evaluation and reduced the size to right at 1 million gallons. And I want to say it cut $600,000 or $700,000 off of this project, and it was simply because it seems to be something with that 1 million gallon range.
Yeah, designing for once every 10-year occurrence.
Right,
Doesn't make sense.
that's right.
For the initial cost as well as the wear and tear, 15 years from now, you're gonna go replace the system anyway, so.
That's right, and the pumps cost more to maintain, so we told the engineer, you know, we understand the safety factor, but we think a safety factor of 2 is sufficient for this project, especially given the tank, given the cost. Especially right now, we don't even have access. So we're really excited about that. And I think what he was thinking, you know, just not to belabor the point, but I think in examining it, if you do the 1.5, that matches the Commons capacity. So I think that's where they had landed on that number. And then the Country Club water system, this project has also been in there for quite a while. You'll see that we did an evaluation in 2011. Right now, this area is on Owasso water, city sewer. The city bills at the city rates, and right now the city rates are lower than Owasso rates. In addition, when we evaluated the service level compared to the existing city system, the pressure and capacity and everything's okay, but fire protection was a challenge. It didn't meet the urban fire protection that the city has. So it didn't meet fire hydrant spacing. The problem with fire hydrant spacing is you have to have a minimum of a 6-inch main, and most of the streets don't have 6-inch mains, which is why they don't have fire hydrants. Most of them are 2-inch. So right now the system is still owned by Owasso. We have been working with them, trying to identify areas where we provide service outside of city limits that really doesn't make sense for us to provide service to, and they provide service to this area. So what we're trying to do is line up accounts and possibly do a switch so that both entities remain whole revenue-wise, which is the goal. We don't want to, you know, we would love to get this area, but we don't want to cause problems for Owasso either, because there's, and I don't remember the total number, but I think there's 400 or 500 services on that system, because it's not just Country Club, it's the Perry Drive area, north of that up to Country Club, and then across to include Dixie Trail and Sunset Acres.
Highland Forest new.
Highland Forest is on Wassa, but we
It's on
don't
Wassa,
have sewer. So it's actually outside the city.
Yeah.
So this project, the scope behind this project is to tie that, once we work out the agreement, it requires capital funds to actually take the system loose from Omwassa and tie it into the city, and then replace mains to get that fire protection that we need. So, and again, that project's been on the books for a while. I imagine that it's not a simple, let's trade baseball cards. And then Memorial Drive line water replacement is a project coming into the window. It was already identified, but that project would be designed in 25 and then constructed in 26. And then we have the well rehabilitation, which is a ongoing well project. We've got spaced out, and the purpose of this is to replace the well, not replace, but upgrade the well houses and components, because these wells were constructed in the 60s and 70s. We do need to complete well 1 or the Black Creek project first, so that we don't take these wells offline before we have that capacity replaced. And then this is a new project in the CIP for FY25. We had an evaluation done of our ground storage tank. That tank was completed in 2010 or 11. Plant was put online in 11, I think. So tank was probably actually completed in 9 or 10. But it is a wire spun concrete structure, and some of the concrete is, because concrete cracks, some of the concrete is beginning to crack, and hairline cracks, and which allows water infiltration. And I think everybody knows, but concrete is not waterproof. It's actually porous, so over time, water does permeate through concrete, which is why houses have vapor barriers. So if anybody's ever wondered, but the challenge here is we're starting to see some of that corrosion leach through. So we need to get this done. We have 2 options to fund this. The first option is just to fund it outright as a project, as a capital project. The second is to roll it into our asset management plan, which is what we have for our water tanks, because the same company would be doing this work. But this saves us, and I don't know if you remember how much, but I want to say this saves us about $30,000 or $40,000 if we just go ahead and knock it all out at once. So that's what we're proposing to do in the CIP. And then the additional water projects that we have planned, and you can see those. The only thing that I'll point out is, along with the water tank at the water plant, we also had the mixing tank evaluated, and these include both internal and external. And the mixing tank also is a concrete structure, and it needs repairs also. So we would do 1 in 25, and then they said the mixing tank we can wait on a couple of years. We don't need to push it too far, but then the idea would pick that up in 27.
Question.
Yes, sir.
When you renovate these concrete structures with this new material, do you know what the life expectancy of that is?
So what they would do is probably point it up to seal it, and then put a coating on it, and it's an epoxy coating. I don't know what the life of that epoxy coating is, but what we put on our water tank, or our metal water tanks, is about 10 years. So I would expect it to be similar, which explains why it's time to do it.
Almost like putting a sock on one of those tubes. It's just a larger scale.
Yeah. This one's more like painting a car.
Like rental in.
Yeah.
So, and then, these are the rest of the, projects. One of the ones you'll see up there that I'll point out coincides with the southwest water tank. You'll notice that we identify, one of our master plans identified a water tank in the southwest area, generally in the vicinity of Yop Road, to address some pressure issues that we will continue to have as that system continues to grow, or that area continues to grow. So, and, you know, I'll just note, we don't have a water tank on that side of the river at all. So if there's an issue, it's actually supplied from the Black Creek wells. So tying that with the citywide single pressure zone, that tank, the model showed if we used a similar tank to what we have at the Commons, that we could use that to go to a single pressure zone across the entire city. So right now, we have 2 pressure zones. One's about 65 PSI, give or take. That's generally it is the area served by the Commons tank. So generally down Western Boulevard, into the northwest, I guess. No, sorry, northeast of that. So if you're coming up Western, it's kind of Western Boulevard, and then the general area to the right, you know, headed towards 17. The low side is actually kind of from between Belfork and Western and the rest of the city. So one of the things that we've noted is there is a desire to move from the low pressure, from, you know, the lower pressure of 45 PSI to 65 PSI. And that does make a difference when you're building, especially if you're building apartments, because it can mean the difference between having to add booster pumps for sprinkler systems and being able to just tie the sprinkler system in. And you probably have a better idea of the cost of that. But I know that we've had several apartment complexes talk to us, and when we start talking about our pressure, they get concerned real quick, because not only does it limit sprinkler, it also limits height of the building. So it is a limiting factor. So in summary, we have a total of 47 projects, 5 DOT, 19 water, 15 sewer, and then 8 water and sewer combined. That's across the whole plan for the 10 years. We have 18 total projects for sewer. What I will say is, you'll notice we have 8 carryover projects that are funded or mostly funded. I talked about 2 that we needed to add funds to. And then we have 8 new projects, which I can tell you is a significant number. Typically we have 5 to 6. But some of those are because of pressure that we're seeing from development, or like the water tank, you know, kind of a one-time thing that we need to address. So with that, this is our timeline. Tonight we've given you a draft of the CIP. We will give you time to go back and review that. Feel free to come next time with questions. Can't guarantee that I'll be able to answer, but I'll do my best. In the meantime, we are going to get with finance, get these projects programmed, and see what our rate structure looks like. And like we do in the past, and I noticed as we were building this presentation and looking back at last year's, I think there was about 3 or 4 projects we shifted that were future projects to help balance that rate model. We will do the same thing. And if we move something, I will certainly let you know what that is and where we moved it to, and if that would have significant impacts. So any questions? Yes, sir.
I know it might be too early to ask this question based on what you were just saying, but with all these additional projects that you said that normally is 5 to 6, which is true, do you anticipate the cost being higher for the year that could impact possibly the citizens having to pay more?
I don't know.
I know it's a
I need
little
to
early.
look at that.
I'm just hypothetical.
Yes, I need to look at that.
Because it depends on, some of those are new projects, but when it, I realize $160,000 sounds like a lot, but when you're talking our capital plan,
Yeah.
it's not a lot.
Right.
So it wouldn't add much. We just need time to go back. We literally finished this book today.
So you're plugging this in to see what the rate, when you say, see what the rate model looks like, see what the rate may need to go to forecast all this program that you're plugging in.
Yes.
And the timeline that you want it on.
That's
Okay.
correct. And the way the model works is it lays it out just as you've seen it by fiscal year and the expenditures in the fiscal year. And we can actually move those expenditures and change funding sources and change rate if we need to see how it balances. So it's a very comprehensive model.
Okay.
And I think we end up, finance loves me during this time of year because I think I probably end up running 10 different iterations. And the idea is I pay water and city rates
Give
too.
options.
Yeah, I don't want to pay any more than I have to either. But there are critical things that we have to do. So, and then the other piece that this will be used for is we are going through every 5 years, we have to update our system development fee model and study. So this is the year that we are doing that. Matter of fact, we just had the kickoff meeting for that project. So this will also be used to build that project. The difference in what we're doing this year and what we did 5 years ago is 5 years ago, we didn't end up with a model at the end that we can modify. This year, we have put into the project that they have to provide us a model to where we can actually model those rates the same that we model our rates for our ratepayers. So it just helps us in making decisions.
Let's hope those fees come way down.
Now, I hate to be the bearer of bad news,
But the consultant that we're using, which as you can imagine is a niche market, there's only about 3 or 4 major consultants that do it. He said in the ones that he's done in the last 3 or 4 years, not a single one has come down because of what costs have done. So in the other, and I know I'm getting a little bit off track, but the one thing I'll say is the law allows for projects, the cost of projects that add growth to the system, recovering cost from projects that add to the growth or add to the capacity of the system. It also allows for the operation and maintenance cost of the system, and historically we have excluded that by city council direction. So this board's actually made a recommendation taken to city council when we review the plan, and what we've said is we want our system development fees to support growth, but we don't want to overinflate them, include operation and maintenance and things that our ratepayers should be paying for. So we do try to balance the scales.
No, it makes perfect sense. I mean, everything we've talked about, we've got the expertise here that they know exactly what, you were talking about in briefing. We appreciate you briefing all this for about an hour now.
yeah, sorry.
Which is
This is gonna be a long one.
which is fine, because as I sit here, I'm thinking I'm watching TV like the populace, the citizens are, and they're learning that when prices go up, it's not because the city just wants to raise prices. There's inflation involved, there's cost analysis, and everything you're doing to keep the cost down helps everyone. And I know I appreciate that, I'm sure we all do also, because when you bring out these prices and they look a lot, because we're not used to seeing that, but then when you explain how that price came about, and especially when you take one project and you combine other projects that you could do 3-4 things with that one, save money over here, it kind of balances out throughout the whole program. So I know we appreciate that, and we got the right people doing the right things out there, and then you got the experts that will save us money, because that's what it's all about. Because today's economy, you know, you wanna get crazy with all this. And with that, we have an open discussion time. Are there any, questions that we missed, or have any questions for Wally or Roy?
You have maybe a couple statements in the upcoming meetings. Of course, your next meeting, we'll be talking CIP again. Mr. Thomas asked for an update on the Piney Green sewer. I haven't forgotten that. We'll get that programmed after we get the CIP through, because it's where staff's time is focused primarily right now. But we do have that on our list of things to get. And then we will bring you the system development fee study as we progress through that, and bring you updates. And then historically, what we've done with that study is we've involved stakeholders from the development community, and we've involved this board. So I expect that will all be done as part of that process. So those are things that you have coming for consideration. And then one thing I'd like to mention, while Roy has sat here very quietly, he has been working nonstop at least the last week and a half or 2 weeks to get this pulled together, because it's not just water and sewer. There's also all the other projects that are part of this document. So
Thank you,
we
Roy.
appreciate everything he's done there too.
It's just like Warren officer.
The new CIP timeline.
So, thank you. One other thing after this year, and part of the reason it's so compressed to this year, is we are trying to move the CIP process earlier in the budget cycle. The new manager sees that as a high priority and sees that as one of the things that needs to be upfront for consideration. Historically, what we've done is we've kind of run it concurrently, the CIP process concurrently with the budget. So generally, we start in the November timeframe collecting new projects from all the departments. Then we spend November and December trying to get those keyed in, iron out the scopes and the descriptions and justifications for those projects. Then we spend January and February trying to pull together any possible cost estimates that we can come up with. And then we spend, March and April trying to do rate model discussions, committee discussions, departmental and manager review, and then it goes to council as part of the budget process. Next year, the goal is to have the CIP completed by December or in December.
This year.
Which means we will finish the CIP in
Start right back at
April
it.
and start in July. So you'll be having these discussions. Of course, then we'll get back on our annual track.
schedule, yeah.
But this year's going to fill. But you'll be very busy with CIP because we'll be rolling from this year right into next year, right at the start of the budget year. Thank you.
With Roy's, no problem.
That's right. Roy's got a busy plate.
Okay. Was there any other questions that we need to discuss from anybody from the committee? Again, I thank everybody for coming. Our next regular meeting is scheduled for 5:30 p.m. Thursday, March 14th. Same place, same channel, same everything. If there is no other further business, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. All right, meeting's adjourned.